Hey everybody, welcome to Mark Jackson's Movie Reviews. I'm Mark Jackson, and today I'm going to talk about the rhythm section and why it's the next step in the ongoing deconstruction and general grungification of the 1970s debonair Roger Moore type James Bond movie. So stick around. So the first wave of this grunging up of James Bond began with the Jason Bourne franchise. It was similar to the way that Alien updated spaceship stories by smearing grime and print marks on the shiny equipment. Remember, all the keyboards were grubby and everything was grimy? In the same way, Jason Bourne made the tuxedo-wearing Bondness of the spy genre more nitty-gritty. So instead of the sleek, silenced Walter PPK handguns and the suave and debonair witty quips, we got a deadly serious Jason Bourne who utilized vicious Krav Maga-based street fighting. And that, in turn, cross-pollinated by blowing back on the current Bond reincarnations. Daniel Craig's grittier, grungier Bond should really be called Jason Bond. So, the rhythm section. It's not really a spy story per se. It starts off as a revenge story. Blake Lively plays Stephanie Patrick. She's a summa cum laude Oxford student, and her life gets destroyed by a transatlantic plane crash that kills her entire family. So now she's got major trauma and PTSD, which leads to a really potent downward spiral, ending up with her becoming a prostitute. Why? So she can pay for her heroin addiction, which is, I don't know, isn't that maybe a bit much? Like from Oxford summa cum laude to junkie prostitute? Okay, let's say it could happen. It's in the realm of possibility. So 3 years later, there's an investigative journalist who hunts her down and explains to her that the tragedy was actually caused by a bomb. It wasn't a mechanical failure. And that lights a fire of vengeance under her, which it seems like also doubles as a death wish. So once Stephanie realizes that she can trust this journalist, she gets slammed with this immediate desire for revenge. And why shouldn't she? So she buys a gun at a pawn shop. She hunts down this bomb maker, but then messes up the whole situation because she can't bring herself to pull the trigger. But then the bomb maker goes after the journalist and kills him. So Stephanie goes through the journalist's stuff and she discovers a photo of Scotland that's got geographic coordinates. And we're not sure why, but Stephanie hops on a bus and heads up to the Scottish Highlands. Once she gets there, she meets Ian Boyd, who's a former M16 agent. He's played by Jude Law. And then, of course, we get the standard training montage where Boyd teaches Stephanie martial arts, weaponry, spy tradecraft, and special operations military things. The title of the movie comes from her learning how to observe her rhythm section.
You've got to get your rhythm section under control and give your heart as the drums.
Which is about how to balance and calm her nerves in combat situations. Boyd says, think of your heart as the drums and your breathing as the bass. He also makes her do a Navy SEAL thing and demands that she swim across this freezing cold Scottish lake to demonstrate to him the level of her commitment. By the way, I'm basically a super fan of Braveheart, so I had a little bit of a problem with the fact that when Stephanie steps off the bus from England, the rhythm section soundtrack strikes up the actual theme music from Braveheart. They're like a close facsimile. No, you do not mess with Braveheart. You do not mess with Braveheart.
Would you be willing, for one chance, just one chance, to kill our enemy?
Thank you very much. You have to be a film of epic proportions to go anywhere near Braveheart. So after a couple of months of training, Stephanie's off to Tangiers to pursue her revenge plans, where she meets with an ex-CIA mercenary, played by Sterling K. Brown, who knows how she can get to the terrorist behind the bombing. Okay, so here's the deal. Everything in modern culture and marketing caters to our addictions in order to sell more product, so the ante constantly has to be upped. And where we're currently at in terms of escalation is like Marty McFly in Back to the Future when he turns every volume dial in Doc Brown's lab up to 10 and then all the toggle switches up to 10 and he plugs in the guitar and stands in front of that Shrek-sized amplifier and he hits a power cord and blows himself through the wall. You remember that? The thing is, the Jason Bourne franchise already maxed out the spy genre adrenaline rush. So how do you turn that up a notch? Actually, the rhythm section is not the first rerouting of the Bond spy genre locomotive onto new tracks. That was Red Sparrow, which was about the young, very attractive Russian spies that were trained to be sexually seductive honey traps.
Take off your dress.
What the rhythm section does is hitch its caboose, to continue this train metaphor, to that narrative. So, starting from the sleek, highly trained Red Sparrow operative played by Jennifer Lawrence, we then devolve to Blake Lively's no makeup wearing, bruised, strung out, psychologically fragile, junkie prostitute. That's how you escalate the grittiness and deglam the whole spy genre another notch downward. So what does that all add up to? The rhythm section actually has less in common with Atomic Blonde, which also featured a female assassin, than it does with Adam Sandler's recent Uncut Gems. Namely, it's about barely manageable chaos. See, Stephanie's trained for a couple of months, which you could say that makes her a sort of uncut gem herself, of sorts. So now she's going to take on pros. She's clearly got a lot of heart, but she's got, at best, very rudimentary hand-to-hand combat skills, gunfighting skills, and combat driving skills. A newbie spy can't yet impose her will on a highly chaotic, dangerous situation. So it's all about raw, raggedy, seat-of-the-pants survival mayhem, which, although that raises the stakes in a certain way by making it all more raw and dangerous, it also makes it more stressful. Like I said about Uncut Gems, which is basically about an out-of-control gambling addict running around a minefield of non-stop explosions, which are pretty much all his own fault. Do you really want all that stress? I mean, some people love it. I personally find that there's something comforting in watching Jason Bourne prevail over the chaos, not just surviving it by sheer luck. So that's obviously a preference. I prefer highly skilled Jason Bourne chaos management over no skills having Stephanie Patrick's chaos survival with its non-stop close calls, which made me just wince most of the movie. I like to relish the karmic retribution meted out by a major butt whipping, but that's just me. It's looking more and more like Blake Lively's cinematic stock and trade is getting herself severely harmed. Her character suffered very hard to watch major sexual abuse in the very gross and gratuitous Savages. And while the very lovely Lively wearing a peach-colored bikini like she did in The Shallows is eminently watchable, she spent the majority of that movie, The Shallows, which is about sharks, dealing with lots of bodily harm and blood and open wounds and wincing and groaning. And the rhythm section is no different. It even borrows from the horror genre at one point. So ultimately, this upgraded take on the spy genre substitutes raw emotional pain and the hollow-eyed inner vacantness, high personal stakes, vulnerability, extreme wounding, and brutal mayhem for the type of ancient James Bond nonsense where, for example, in 1973's Live and Let Die, 007 unzips a woman's dress with the magnet in his watch, and she says, "Such a delicate touch," and James Bond says, "Sure, magnetism, darling." The old Virginia Slim cigarette ads of the 1970s used to say, "You've come a long way, baby." And that was, of course, the feminist point of view at the time, and that represented progress. And obviously, James Bond, such as he was, had to go. But personally, I left the rhythm section feeling harmed in my soul. And also, like Marty McFly, I felt blown through the wall. So that's my review of the rhythm section. It's rated R. Its runtime is 1 hour and 49 minutes. It released on January 31st, 2020, and I'm giving it 2.5 stars out of 5. Have you seen the rhythm section? What'd you think about it? Let me know what you thought by commenting below, and if you like what you see, click right here for more. And if you'd like to read my reviews instead of watching them, Google Mark Jackson Epoch Times, EPOCH Times, or check me out on Rotten Tomatoes. See you next time.